Hey there. So I am going to give you a little update to the portal paintings. And these portal paintings have really come along. They were these sort of nebulous, I don't know, ethereal washes and ink wash. You've seen some of the steps already. And my next layer was to put on some horizontal bands to kind of give this less of a rotational feel and more of sort of a bottom and a top. I experimented with each of the 10 paintings with different locations of these stripes and these sort of, I don't know, these triangular shapes. And then went back and found some drawings I had made of some spaces. And I decided to draw some real spaces in here. To the, I'm trying to experiment actually with this idea of looking into different spaces. So this is one of a couple buildings. I'm going to switch through a bunch of them here so you can see. Um, I don't just have building spaces, but I also have some wild spaces that I started to draw in. And so here's another one. So this one is kind of a wilderness space, and you can see that there's some trees and there's actually a pathway that moves back through this way. These sort of broken up lines are slightly different, and I'm enjoying this juxtaposition of these two different kinds of spatial forms. The real sort of linear, well, not just linear, I suppose, but this graphic representation of real actual layers on top of each other, but also this pictorial depiction of depth. So that's another one, and like I said, there's a whole bunch of them in here, and so here's another one. So this one here is the corner of a space. I began thinking about, as I was doing these spaces, like what kinds of spaces am I actually working with? And so this is a corner of my studio, and this sort of breaks this up in some real sort of basic linear perspective. But I'm again playing around with the layering of this kind of ethereal, nebulous space with the graphic space, and now this third kind of space, which is a linear or drawn pictorial space. I had some spaces I drew and I was drawn to from a visit to Washington, D.C. some years ago with my family. And this was in the Library of Congress up on the second floor, I believe, maybe the third floor. No, it's second floor. And these arches and columns and sort of how that sets up a very structured linear perspective kind of space. And then again, here is another set of lines and sort of color contrasts that I was messing with for those. And I'm kind of really enjoying the drawing aspect of these layers now, and moving from sort of some shapes into more sort of drawn like marks. This one here is from the National Cathedral, and looking sort of down a hallway and these pillars and a window sort of on the left hand side. And this combining of the spaces, again, I'm fascinated by it. And so through this series, I'm just sort of pushing things together and making them sort of come together and making them, forcing them to sort of be in the same space. And that tension and pressure, I think, of those spaces is what's really charging me at this stage of the process. Here's another one. So I've got a mess of these started. So where these other stripes are happening in relationship to the linear perspective going back in space, is curious for me. I'm really interested in that. So this one kind of felt, I don't know, like in a way kind of nightmarish, but this was a view sort of down a road, and yeah, not sure exactly. This one seems a little bit sinister, I guess. And this one is from a trip to the Mabel Tainter Opera House in Menominee, Wisconsin, which is an amazing bit of old architecture, and it is there is some draperies and looking into the space and these rows of chairs, and I believe the stage is right over here. This is the pit for the orchestra, and a banister here where I was sitting, and so these are again like another strange space overlaid, and so as I'm building these up, I'm imagining sort of which parts of these I want to sort of block off as solid or semi-transparent areas, just to kind of help me think about, well, I guess, I don't know, just to help me to kind of activate those spaces. You'll see in a second. I left two for the end that I've started that on. So here's another one. So this one here is from a place that I take a daily walk in, and it's a nature preserve real close to my home, and sort of here's the pathway and sort of the trees, and really again this focus and depth, and this the off-kilterness of some of these lines. These lines really start to define an emotional quality to the space for me, and wow, I'm super jazzed about these. I can't say enough about it. So then I started blocking some areas in, like in the first one I showed you. Here's another one. This is a warehouse space that I had a chance to sort of spend a lot of time in, and sort of a sort of multiple spaces, large pillars, and in this one I'm beginning to sort of block off some transparent panels to define the space a little bit more, and I'm not sure quite yet how I feel about that. I think I'm moving between these hand-drawn lines and now these sort of more clearly defined shapes, and I'm thinking I'm getting my fill of transparency. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this kind of a layering on all of them, or maybe I'll go monochromatic to experiment with that. Again, these lines are coming through. So in this one, they're kind of, you can see in each one of this linear pattern that I've created to kind of help me sort of pull together the round space into sort of more of a rectangular space. I'm not sure how much of that's going to survive the process, but I think that it does sort of trigger for me a really interesting response. So I'm kind of always responding a little bit to what I did the day before, or the idea before, in depicting the space, and that kind of that amount of chaos where I'm trying something totally different but kind of related is really what's keeping me I guess pretty excited about the project. So here's another one. This was in a I don't know, this was inside the I think it was Thomas Edison's summer home, or it was Henry Ford's summer home down in Florida. And this is one of the houses. Here's a stairwell that was going up and a banister. And so this moving into different spaces is really fascinating and interesting for me. So that's where I'm at right now with these round portals. I hope you found that really interesting.